Hello, Anons, Anani Mouses. You know, I was thinking the other day about this idea of speaking for someone or something else. I was just pondering that one for a bit and came to the startling conclusion that most people don't know how to speak for themselves, let alone speak for something else or someone else. And not only that, but the whole idea of representing someone else leads to misrepresentation by its very nature. And if the thing can't even talk in the first place, like a corporation, then you're not even speaking for anything whatsoever. You're making words. You could be speaking to patterns of humans or patterns of behavior within this mental framework that we call a corporation, but for the most part, it's just used to promote ideology and perpetuate divide and conquer mindset, because that's what capitalism is divide and conquer, and it's unhealthy competition. It's not healthy competition. It's oligarchical monopolies, obviously. We all know what healthy competition looks and feels like. Like, high school football maybe, or chess. Like the lower level, the non-professional levels of sports are what you would call healthy competition. Once money comes in and sort of power and prestige and all that, then it starts, the tables start tipping towards the artificial power that we call money. Money is artificial power, and not only that, it's inverted. So the ones who have the money are, generally speaking, the most robotic, or the ones with the least amount of humanity inside of themselves. Necessarily so. So this idea of speaking for... I'm not saying that speaking for a group is inherently bad. It's not. It can be beneficial. It's just that in normal conversation, say like we had 5 of us on today's guys on isolating session, and if I were to speak for this group of 4 very unique, dynamic individuals, it would be difficult on the outset to say anything that meant anything. Very difficult. This is just for 4 people. And I would have to check with them individually and be like, is this correct? Do you feel like that's right? Does this feel like you? Even the words, like, does this represent you? Like it's already a removal. Anyway, the linguistics of it, the semantics. Ben's in Unfuckers. My oldest brother's in Unfuckers. I've heard about the group, but I've never joined it, and I'm finally inside of it. And Ben never goes on Facebook, so I just saw him comment, and it's pretty amazing. Anyway, the idea of speaking for a group, it's like tailor-made for hiding. You know, it's this whole idea of speaking for a group is tailor-made for fuckery and shenanigans and misrepresentation, obviously. And then the further you go along with the sort of degradation of power structures and you know, corruption and whatnot, then eventually the talking heads up there trying to represent, you know, the people, they're not even saying anything that has remotely anything to do with anybody, really. They're just like they're spitting out talking points, and it doesn't mean anything whatsoever aside from slight entertainment value, Kardashian style entertainment value, because, you know, everybody knows that people still kind of pay attention to elections, which is kind of odd, but somehow that still sort of happens. So it's a bit strange. NPCs are getting angry up in here. It's a bit strange. That's all they do, right? Is they react and they get angry. And you can't teach them meditation. We have a difficult enough time trying to get this, like, these words out to talk about something that's happening inside of this physical, spiritual, emotional, body-mind frequency compilation that's here in the 3D. We have a difficult enough time doing that without trying to speak for other people or corporations, God forbid. You know, even if you were talking about tribes, it still is gonna get real fucky. And vested interests are always existing, even in a casual conversation. This stuff is always just, you know, millimeters below the surface, and those of you who are sensitive enough to see just below that surface, you see all those things happening. Most of what happens in a conversation is not said. The same way that most of what is happening in this particular realm is not what you see with your eyes and what you hear with your ears and, you know, your five sensory sort of you know, transceiver device that your meat suit comprises. That's the most minimal part, is the part that you compute with your five senses. That's like the tip of the iceberg, and it means something, but it doesn't mean a lot. So, like, at some point, when groups or corporations say we're perhaps responsible for child trafficking, or you know, a government's responsible for genocide of their own peoples, anything really, you know, if a group is directly responsible for atrocities, and the group knows, well, you know, the people aren't a huge fan of, you know, just murder and rape and you know, energy harvesting and whatnot. They're not. This doesn't just, you know, get just doesn't get them going, you know, kind of like maybe like it gets us going. So when they have this understanding, then the head, the blabbering head that says, I represent such and so group, whether it be a country or corporation or a group of people or whatever, or some, you know, some spirits from the astral plane, collective, anything, they're very likely going to be engaging in what do you call it, frosting the turd, polishing the turd type behavior, because there's nothing else you can do in that situation. If your group is responsible for these things, or at least at the very minimum people within the group are responsible for these sorts of things or atrocities or whatever, then you can't get up there and say anything if you're not getting up there and saying, yes, these members of our group are we know exactly what they've been doing, and you know, there's this such and so justice or whatever's going to happen, or punishment or anything. If they're not saying that, then they're practicing in you know, fuckery. They're practicing in misinformation and lies and everything else that goes along with that, which, you know, we all know too well. And I think most of the politicians are actual robots anyway, so they can't really say anything anyway. You literally have to program them to say the most inane nonsense. It's difficult to speak for... If you got rid of the whole concept of speaking for somebody else or speaking for some group, if you just ousted that concept completely, then any misinformation or lies would only reflect back on you, the individual, and you would be self-responsible for whatever comes back to you. Instead of sitting here and spewing out a bunch of lies for a group or something, or because you're scared that your head's gonna get chopped, or, you know, whatever. Anyone who's wielding power wields it in a variety of ways, but you can either be coerced through fear, or you can be coerced through promises of rewards, but it's still this Pavlovian, like, give me the treat or I run away from the scary club type auto response. And it's like barbaric, of course, and, you know, it's very silly, but I don't really know why I'm talking about this. It's kind of a moot point, but I felt like making a video. So anyway, the guys on isolating should be up soon. Let me know how you guys are doing, and guys and women, aliens, NPCs, hive mind folks, disembodied spirit entities, gods, fallen angels, demons, elves, fairies, gnomes, you know, big feet, Bigfoots, sprites, any of the animal kingdom that's hopefully you're not doing this, but any of the animal kingdom that's getting some of the human attributes and evolving. It's actually a devolution, don't do it. Anyway, anyone who's listening to this, hope you're doing well. Let me know how you guys are doing. Peace.